One word that I want to remind everybody of, because I did a whole episode on it, is curiosity. So I think one of the best ways to invite psychological safety is just to put a big sticky note that says curiosity. So responding to other people's mistakes, their words, their actions with curiosity instead of blame or disappointment. Just being curious. Where are they? I wonder what's making them come on full spice. I wonder what's making them be so disagreeable. And when you ask yourself those questions, it takes the monkey off of you, right? You're like, no, 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 no. What if this isn't about me? What if I can be curious? Because what if this is actually about them? Hey everyone, welcome to Strong Mind, Strong Body. I'm your host, Angie Miller. Today we are talking about kind of a buzzword, but I think it's so much more than a buzzword. It's psychological safety, and we hear about it all the time. We hear about the importance of psychological safety at home and at work, but what does it really mean? And why is it suddenly something that we're all talking about? So I have a good friend. I used to work with her. Her name is Adria Chambers, and she is a licensed clinical mental health counselor. She is also a certified employee assistance professional. Adria is not just an expert in her field, she's also a good friend, and she's somebody that I will frequently talk to about things, all things personal and professional. So I'm going to bring Adria in to chat with me about this important topic of psychological safety. How you doing, Adria?
I'm doing great, Angie. Thank you for having me. As she said, I am Adria Chambers. I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor and certified employee assistance professional. But more than that, before I got into this field, I worked in corporate America. And so I was a leader in that industry as well as an employee. And so I think that I have a unique perspective in that I understand how psychological safety impacts the employee, how it impacts a leader, and I can talk to it from a mental health perspective. And so I'm really excited about doing that today.
See, I feel like I could just hop right off and you could just run the show, Adria, because it's everything I had in mind. So yeah, you have the corporate lens, you have the mental health lens, and you have a world of experience to bring to this. So it's psychological safety, like I mentioned at the beginning, is kind of this buzzword, but what does it really mean beyond just, a workplace buzzword? What do you think it means, Adria? How would you describe it?
So for me, psychological safety is the absence of fear of being your authentic self in interpersonal relationships, whether that be at work or at home. So that is, not being afraid of asking questions, not being afraid of stating your opinions or your thoughts, and fear that, you're going to be dismissed or diminished, that you're going to be made to feel irrelevant or judged. That's psychological safety. And that happens in both environments, both the work environment and the personal one.
Yeah, it definitely does. And the thing is, I was just talking to a friend of mine this morning and she said, "What's your topic today?" And I said, "Psychological safety." And she said, "Well, what is that exactly?" And I said, "To me, it's that ability to be authentically you and not fear retaliation." And I said, "At home, it can look like being with a partner who's very highly defensive. And so you stop speaking your truth because you know that it's going to be about them being defensive. And then it's going to be about them, their anger and their reaction to what you're saying, which then makes what you're saying not even safe. Like you were never heard because you're so busy dealing with it's kind of like the walking on eggshells phenomenon."
Right. Absolutely. I mean, and then that happens in the workplace. I can recall when I first got into the work field, I was working with a young company and their human resources department wasn't really developed, and they were promoting people without putting job postings out. And I would ask questions like, well, how do we know how to apply for the jobs if we don't have a job posting? And I asked one too many questions. And as a result of that, I ended up getting demoted. And it sent a very clear message that you don't ask questions. And people started feeling very unsafe because of that. And so, that's kind of how it can sometimes show up in the workplace.
Yep, Absolutely. You have one bad experience. And
Hmm.
again, like I said, it's that walking on eggshells. If somebody's defensive at home or at work, you realize that you speaking up actually caused, a silence, or how when you're at a meeting or something and you say something, everybody gets really quiet. And then
Hmm.
you go home with that icky feeling of, uh-oh, I think I just
Hmm.
took one for the team and nobody backed me up. And
Right.
now I don't know where that's going to go. So I definitely, yeah, in a nutshell, it's this idea or this felt sense that we're not going to be punished or humiliated or rejected if we speak up. And
Mhm.
that's what psychological safety really is. So how do you think, if we take that one step further than Adria, in terms of safety, how does the safety we feel at home impact our ability to show up authentically at work and vice versa?
Well, safety really all has to do about the nervous system. And if you are unsafe and feeling nervous at home and you have emotions that are associated with that, when you go to work and those emotions and feelings are triggered in the work environment, you immediately start to feel panicked, or you might go into a fight, flight, or freeze mode because of it, and vice versa at home. If this is where it started at work, where you were feeling unsafe and uncomfortable, it created these emotions for you. And so then you go home and you feel that way. You might find yourself in a fight, flight, or freeze mode. It's all about trying to manage the stress, trying to manage that anxiety. And that's kind of how it shows up.
Yeah, because it puts you in that hypervigilant state. And
Hmm.
so if your nervous system is on high alert at home, you go to work on high alert. And
Hmm.
again, like you said, if it's on high alert at work, you come home in high alert. And it's like I will often say to my daughter, I'll say, it's not even so much what people say, it's our perception of what people say, and it's where we are in the world, right? And so what people say and how they respond to us is such a reflection of where we are. So I think about psychological safety because I think if we don't feel safe in our environment, whether it's home or work, it is hard for us to receive information from other people in a way where we don't feel like we're on pins and needles, where we're not constantly hypervigilant. And what people say might be, and what their intentions were, could be totally benign and innocent. But when we're in this constant fight or flight, that's not what we're seeing or hearing or receiving.
Hmm.
And I think that's incredibly important because that's why it's important to recognize if you are in an environment at home or at work that is making you feel unsafe, because it will impact your whole entire world, right? I mean,
You can't receive directives because all of a sudden now you don't know if someone you're starting to feel like this is being directed at you. Depending on how you receive that information, you can completely shut down, or you can get very, very defensive, or you could just walk away altogether. And so, and in your personal life, you do the same thing. You're having a conversation with your spouse or your children, and you start to feel panicked or stressed, or you have some level of fear, and you just shut down. And a lot of times, things don't get resolved because of that. And so it's important for you to recognize if you're experiencing that, and to try to figure out how you can manage that. That's the thing. How can you manage when you're when you're feeling psychologically unsafe? So what are some things that you think about?
right. And I think, and I do want to address that. And let's take that on just for a minute, but let's come back to that in more full swing. But
Okay.
when I think about it, I think in terms of where is your support? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's one thing to recognize when you're in a psychologically unsafe environment. It's another thing to say, because I've often said on this show that the higher the level of stress or the higher the level of the challenge, the higher level of support we need. I do believe that we can get through anything with the right amount of support, because to me, support gives us a wider lens. It gives us perspective. It's somebody stepping back going, look, I'm not in your situation. This is what I'm seeing. And then we go, oh, it's not just me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not paranoid, or I'm not, living in fight or flight for nothing. Turns out this is real stuff. So I think support is one of the first things that I come up with, in, support on an outside level. But I also think about support in terms of journaling, because a lot of times when I write out what happens or the experience that I had, I have my own way of stepping outside of myself and going, okay, A, that's on paper, it's not in here anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
B, I can look at it through a longer lens. What comes to your mind?
For me, it is definitely working out, exercising, and I process, especially walking. Woo. I process a lot of things when I'm walking. I have those conversations in my head and also conversations with my friends. Sometimes when I am expressing what happened and how I perceived things, my friend is like, I don't think that is the way it was intended. And it gives me an opportunity to step back and try to see it from a different perspective. So exercise and walking for me is definitely one of the ways that I kind of process what's going on when I'm finding myself feeling psychologically unsafe and speaking with a friend.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that you've been that person for me, and hopefully I've been that person for you, where we've run things by one another and thought, hey, can you just like pull me out of me for a minute? And can I just embrace your perspective on this? Because right now my lens is too short. So Adria, let's kind of move on because I have another thought about this. So I my question would be, how do leaders, especially in you coming from corporate America, how do leaders balance being vulnerable and authentic while also providing stability and direction people need?
Yeah.
Because before I hand this over, I do want to say that I think that the surest sign of strength is somebody who can admit they're wrong. Like the minute somebody is able to admit they're wrong, they are my friend for life. I'm like, thank you, because I don't really care who's wrong. But if you can admit I don't have it all right all the time and I'm not perfect, you're giving me the ability to say I'm not perfect either.
Absolutely. So then that goes to cultivating trust, right? I think that is the core of it. When you are able to cultivate trust within a department with your employees, then they are able to feel safe. And that cultivation of trust comes a number of ways. Admitting that you're wrong, just like you said, but also being transparent, being empathic, allowing people to be able to speak their truth or speak their mind and not punishing them for it, that there's no retaliation. I think all of those things are ways that a leader can present themselves in the workplace and have employees feel like they're safe, they're stable, they're able to, come as their authentic self and not be judged or punished or have some sort of repercussions for it.
Right. And I think that that's a hard thing, right? Receiving information is hard. And I think that a leader wants to be, I would like to think that many leaders do want to be authentic and vulnerable, but they also want to feel like they've got a strong hold on the situation because people are looking to them to be a leader. And so it's that nuance that they're like, well, I'm not sure how to do this. And I think that that's what we're seeing. Well, first of all, it's just admitting that you don't have to be right all the time and that you don't always have to have all the answers, but you can just kind of be human within this container of being in charge, if you will, because I think that you can be in charge and be human at the same time, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, look, if you have employees that have great ideas, and you're always shutting them down because you want to appear to be in charge and to know everything, then you're putting yourself in a situation where your employees don't trust you and they don't feel like that they can come to you and provide you with their insight and their input. And so that hurts the department. But if you can open yourself up and say, look, this is what I think, this is what I see, and then open the floor up and allow your employees to kind of say, no, I think we should do this, or I think this is a better a way of handling that situation, or this process, I know we implemented it, but it doesn't work. And you go, you know what, you're absolutely right, it doesn't. And you're able to have that dialogue and receive that feedback. You're still leading the department, but you're also opening it up to let people know that it is okay for them to bring their ideas to the table and that they will be heard. And if it's a good idea, something will happen with it. And if it's not, you can give credence to why it's not, and they will trust that and not feel like they were unheard.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of saying it. And I think that sometimes too, I know for me, I'm an example person. So maybe I love your examples. And I think, again, another example is like a manager being able to say, I made a mistake when I was working with that client or the way that I approached that client. And here's what I learned. So yes, I made a mistake. And this is what I learned so that I won't make that mistake again. Or at home, it's when a parent can apologize and say, I was overwhelmed when I got home from work. I was super stressed and I snapped at you. That wasn't fair. Here's what I'm going to do next time I'm overwhelmed and I'm stressed. And then, like you said, a leader just being able to say, hey, I'm struggling. let's invite some ideas in, let's figure this out together.
Right.
So I think that there definitely examples are helpful for people in these situations, because they're like, well, what does that exactly look like? And I think I think we gave some pretty concrete stuff there, right? So, there are split second decisions in our lives, split second moments in our daily interactions. And they happen at work, they happen at home. And oftentimes, I would venture to say that honestly, more often than not, it's in the moment. Like, we're faced with something, it comes at us quickly, we didn't see it coming. And it's that moment that can make or break a situation, that we can either build psychological safety or we can completely destroy it. So, what do you think is helpful in moments, especially when you're in high stress jobs, where that something that comes out of your mouth could destroy a relationship or it could build it? What's your suggestion to kind of get that pause so that you go the right way with this?
So first, let's just say you said it earlier. We're human, and so something may be going on, something that has nothing to do with your employees, but maybe from higher up, and it has got you off guard. And now you're having an exchange with your employee, and you snap at them, or you dismiss them, or you just have a negative interaction. I think the thing to do is, if that actually happens, is to recognize that, acknowledge that, and then go to that employee and say, you know what, I realized I didn't handle that situation correctly. But if that is the way you're feeling prior to you engaging with someone, I think you just need to take a step back, really think about what it is that you're going to say and how you're going to say it, so that you aren't going to do something that's going to harm your employee or anyone else. I think that is the way that you just handle that situation. Everybody, you got to take 10. Tell people, I even tell my daughter this all the time. Before you say what you say to me, you think about what it is that you're going to say to me, so that you don't hurt my feelings. And she goes, Mom, and I'm like, yes, I know sometimes you don't intend to, but you do. So think about it and ask yourself, am I saying this because I'm trying to do a dig at you, or I'm just irritated and I'm just responding out of that irritation? And think before you say it, and then think about how you're going to say it, so that it comes out in a way that it was intended, and not one where it harms me or it hurts me. So, that's what take the pause.
You know what I recently said? I recently said to someone I know quite well, I would invite you to ask yourself, if I were to share that text with the world at large, is that something you would be proud for other people to read?
Mm-hmm.
And that makes people go, right? And so I think texting is one of those moment decisions. But whatever you put out there, ask yourself, is that something you would want other people to read? Would you be ashamed if other people saw the way you speak or respond to situations? And I also think, though, in line with this, is that I know personally for me, I'm super private, but I'm also quite open. And so, like, meaning I am pretty insightful about where I'm at. And so I have been known to literally pause and say, I'm going to think about what I'm going to say, because I know that either whatever it is, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, or I have some personal things going on, and I know that I need to really think hard before I respond, because I don't want to say something that I could regret. And so I'm not going to like bleed all over them and tell them my whole life story, but I will sometimes put it out there that I may not be in the best place. And so I'm going to take extra precaution before I respond, so that I don't say something that might land with them in a way that I might regret.
And
does that make sense?
There's value in that, Angie, because honestly, when you do take the pause, when you say, you know what, I just need to process that for a minute, like I just need to take a minute for myself, and you verbalize that, then that for that person doesn't appear as if you're dismissing them and you're ignoring them. You're letting them know, I heard you. And what you said to me is that I want to respond to that. But right now, I need a moment. I need to take some time so that I can process that, so that when I do speak on it, it's not going to be in a way that's going to be harmful to you. So there's value in that.
Yeah, I need a me moment so that I don't spice back, because if
Exactly.
I spice at you, I can't unspice myself. And so
Exactly. Tube, once that toothpaste comes out the tube, that is it. It's over.
I
Game
mean,
over.
it's game on. So yeah, I think that those are really important. And I think I was going to give a couple examples here. So like safety in a moment, a safety building response would be, thanks for bringing this to my attention. A
Mhm,
safety breaking would be, why didn't you think of this sooner?
mhm, mhm.
Right? Or a safety building would be leaning in when somebody shares a concern, versus safety breaking would be just immediately offering solutions or dismissing them.
Mhm,
Right, before they even get their concern really out, because a lot of times we don't share concerns because we want people to fix them. We
mhm,
share concerns because we just want to have a voice and we want people to hear them and have empathy for them.
mhm.
And then another safety building would be, what do you think? And that's a question versus, here's what you should do.
Right. So I just had a situation that I was involved with, helping a leader with employee, coming to them saying, I feel unsafe because of X, Y, and Z. And instead of the leader going to investigate both sides of it, just went with one side and just, really admonished the other person, but not getting their viewpoint or their vantage point. So you tell me, how do you think that other person felt? They felt unheard. They felt really unsafe. They felt like you didn't even, ask me, my point of view or my side of the story. You just took one side of it. And so I think it's really important for leaders, when an employee comes to you with a concern, for you to talk to both parties. Give both people an opportunity to express their points of views and their perspectives so that you can evaluate from there and understand how you want to move, instead of just taking one side of it, because you're damaging your relationship with one of the employees, and causing them to feel unsafe. And the way other employees are viewing that or looking at that will make them feel like that they're not safe in the environment, because you are not going to listen or hear their side of something if someone comes and says something about them. So I think that's important as well.
Well, and two, sometimes I call that aligning with whoever's in the room. And
Right.
none of us feel safe when there's a person who aligns with whoever is in the room. And
Uh-huh.
we've all had that experience of a person seems to understand us, and then the next thing you know, they are feeling a completely different way because somebody else said something, and you're like, I'm a little confused here,
Uh-huh.
and we just want to know where people stand. And it's fine. It's wonderful to stand neutral, but just make sure you stand neutral, that you don't jump and look like you're just jumping teams, because then it becomes very divisive.
Uh-huh.
So as therapists and wellness people, we know that psychological safety isn't just mental. And I always think of Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score, because we know more than ever that our emotional and psychological stress definitely goes into our system. I know for me, it always affects my sleep, gives me headaches, and it gives me stomach issues. Basically, I'm a hot mess when things are not going the way that I know how to emotionally manage them. And
Uh-huh.
so psychological stress obviously triggers our detection system, our threat detection system. And so what comes up, or what do you hear in your clients the most with stress?
Lack of sleep and stomach issues, or headaches, lack of sleep, stomach issues. Those are the things that I hear the most. And the stomach issues, and when I say that is, I just literally, I can't eat right now. My stomach is in knots. When I go to work, or if I'm in a relationship with someone that is that I'm not happy with, I'm just unable to eat. I'm having difficulty sleeping. That's the main things that I'm hearing. Me personally, when I'm stressed, when I am feeling a little unsafe, mine is definitely sleep. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Mine is definitely sleep. I cannot sleep. And so, I mean, that's something that we really have to pay attention to, because we need our sleep.
Yes, yes. I have often said that I've tried every sleep measure there is during times of stress. And outside of just zonking myself over the head, I'm not certain. But I think the ones that you said definitely make a difference. And I think that the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because I think that sometimes if you're not aware and
Mhm.
whether it's gaslighting or, and again, there's another buzzword, but you feel this sense of dis-ease at home or at work, but you're not sure, you can't label it. You don't know who's crazy in this situation. But you definitely know that you've stopped speaking up. You're right. You don't have that trust anymore. But you're not sure what it is, but you start getting the headaches and you can't sleep and you have stomach problems. Those are your signs. Just know that your body is keeping the score. Your body is telling a story, even if your mind can't process what in the world is going on,
Mhm.
right? Your body is going to give you signals, and your body is smart. And so if you can't listen to your head, because
Listen
sometimes you're
to your
too up in
body.
your head,
Mhm.
listen to your gut, as they say, and listen to your lack of sleep. So that leads me then to, we have to get to, what do people do, right? We can't just like land them with a bunch of problems. And now we know what psychological safety looks like, or a lack thereof. But if you're not the one in charge, you're in a situation at home where maybe you feel like you don't have the, I don't want to say upper hand. You just feel compromised, okay, at home or at work in some way. We'll go with that. Um, what can you do? If
Well,
you can't create it, what can you do?
I always say start setting healthy boundaries. Sometimes that's very important for you to set healthy boundaries and understand what it is that you have control over and what you don't. And what you don't have control over, you have to kind of just lay that to the side and engage with the things that you do have control over. So, for instance, you can't control other people's actions, but you can control how you respond to them. And so, if someone is engaging with you in a negative way, or someone is speaking to you negatively, you can stop and say, I'm not going to stand here and listen to that. I'm going to leave the room right now, and you can exit the room. You don't have to take on or take in or internalize this negative energy that people are trying to pour over onto you. You can simply say, I'm setting a boundary for myself, and this is where it stops here. And however that looks for you, if that is you leaving the room, if that's you, going to count, if that's you using some other coping mechanism, that is how you manage that, because you can't control other people. You can only control yourself.
Right. And I think that too, this is also a good place to, again, do a self check and say, is that really how it's coming across, or is that what they meant, or is it where I am at? Is this a reflection of where I am? But if it's consistent and persistent, and you constantly cannot sleep, and you have stomach issues or headaches, then I'd say that consistency and persistency is a good sign that it really is going on. And that is where your support is going to need to be, and that is where you're going to need to talk to friends and journal, and also where you're going to need to set some boundaries, whatever that looks like. And maybe that just needs to be getting to some emotional safety wherever you can, outside of the work environment or outside of the home environment. Finding it in other, sort of resourcing off of other people, because sometimes we can't resource from ourselves anymore. So we resource from friends and people who might have the bandwidth to help us through these difficult times. And I think it also is modeling, right? So if I am in a situation where I don't feel safety, I am much more cognizant of making other people feel safe, because I know that feeling, right? It's
Right.
like my compassion and empathy grow huge, because I'm like, I never want anybody to feel like this, right?
Absolutely. I also want to say, it's no shame in you going to see a therapist. Sometimes you need someone who is unbiased, that doesn't know your history or your story, to kind of help you work through those things, and to help you to see things from a different perspective, and to provide you with the strategies and tools you need in order to navigate those types of situations. But absolutely, dealing with people from a place of how you want to be treated, and modeling for them that level of compassion and empathy, and giving them a safe place to land, is very strengthening for yourself, especially when you're engaging with people who are not safe.
Yeah, and it's kind of like it's any kind of altruistic work that you do for other people. I mean, one of the best ways to come out of your own stuff is to volunteer and help others. And it's that same way where you can just offer that psychological safety to others. But one word that I want to remind everybody of, because I did a whole episode on it, is curiosity. So I think one of the best ways to invite psychological safety is just to put a big sticky note that says curiosity. So responding to other people's mistakes, their words, their actions with curiosity instead of blame or disappointment. Just being curious. Where are they? I wonder what's making them come on full spice. I wonder what's making them be so disagreeable. And when you ask yourself those questions, it takes the monkey off of you, right? You're like, no, 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 no. What if this isn't about me? What if I can be curious? Because what if this is actually about them?
Mhm.
And then I also think that when one other way you can create safety is asking other people what kind of support they need instead of giving them advice. Like instead of jumping straight to here, let me fix your life for you.
Right.
How about what kind of support do you need? I mean, I know there are times when I'm going through something, I'm like, Adria, can you just fix my life for me? But that's not really what I want, right?
Right.
Wink, wink.
Right. Mhm. Well, I like, thinking the best of people. I mean, if we will just, think that people have good intentions and think the best of them instead of going straight to the negative, I think that helps as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. So, Adria, I really want to thank you for coming on and shining your light and sharing about psychological safety, because I knew you would give this such a good lens, both corporate, but also in mental health. And I want to thank all of our Strong Mind, Strong Body listeners. I do think that safety at work and at home is such a powerful way to create kind of this global sense that we're all in this together. So, thank you very much, Adria. Thanks to all of our Strong Mind, Strong Body listeners, and we will see you next week.